Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Malayaj Sheetalam, Sasya Samalam Mataram, Vande Mataram.
India has been an enigma to outsiders and to Indians as well.
Let us see what this enigma called India is.
When Europe started coming out of the Dark Ages, the first traveller to come out of Europe was Marco Polo in 1300 CE. He travelled over much of Asia and finally came to Malabar in southwest India, after which he returned to Venice. In his travelogue, Marco Polo writes, "India is a land of prosperity with amazing people, millions of miles of fertile country, millions of gold coins, millions of gems. When Constantinople fell to the Turks and became Istanbul, the trade route over land between India and Europe was cut off. There was a need to find an alternate sea route to India. The initial attempts to sail around Africa to reach India over the Indian Ocean failed. Then came Christopher Columbus in the year 1492. Europe had just then discovered that the earth was round. So Columbus decided to travel westwards, circumnavigate the globe to locate India. He found a new world, which he called Indi.
Columbus was certain till the end of his life that he had reached India only.
What he had landed in is called West Indies today, which is why the Native Americans are still called Red Indians, a misnomer which stays to this day. Few years later, in 1498, Vasco da Gama took the largest ships of his times and came along the west coast of Africa, afraid to lose sight of land. After turning the Cape of Good Hope, he writes that he saw ships 10 times the size of his ship. These were mighty ocean-going ships from India. In the midst of these big Indian ships, Vasco da Gama got the courage for the first time to travel mid-sea. Vasco da Gama thus reached the port of Kozhikode, which was a big trade port of India.
Ironically today, we read in our history books that Vasco da Gama found the sea route to India. When Vasco da Gama says that he saw Indian ships that were 10 times the size of his ship, could it have been true? Are there any Indian records for the size of these ships?
The ancient Navasastra texts of India list out the names and sizes of the various Indian ships. The very words navigation, navy and even Noah's Ark share their root with the Sanskrit word Nav for boat. With a long coast of 7,500 kilometers flanking 3 sides of the land, India was a navigational giant of the world.
This raises the question, why was Europe so desperately looking for an alternate route to India? Everybody knows that India used to trade in spices. But for trading in spices alone, you do not need such large ships. Then why did India need such large ships?
There were other bulky goods such as iron and steel, zinc, cotton, indigo, apart from spices that India used to manufacture and export. India also used to trade in high-value items such as diamonds and pearls. Shiploads of fine cotton and muslin have been exported from India to bedeck the nobles and the ladies of Europe for over 2 millennia till the 1800s. India had a monopoly in steel, zinc and indigo. Every village had foundries that produced metal for vessels and weapons. Indian high-quality wood steel was in demand all over the world. Indians were also expert at smelting zinc, a technique which was unknown to the rest of the world since extraction of zinc was very tricky. This technique went from India to China 1550 CE, and from there it spread to Europe. Similarly, Indians were experts at extracting indigo blue dye from the indigo plant, another technology that was unknown to the rest of the world. It was only in 1902 that von Bayer, a German, was awarded the Nobel Prize for making a chemical blue dye.
Sadly, the villagers of India who have been practicing these technologies for many a millennia have not been recognized.
The world was India-centric, the way the world is Europe and America-centric today. Till 1600s, the world was India-centric. India was the most prosperous land. The volume of Indian trade can be seen in the report of Angus Maddison, the world economic historian. India was the #1 player in world trade for over 1,700 years. For all these exports, India was paid in gold and pearls. India contributed 30% of the world GDP from year 0 to 1700 BC. Even after all the plunder by the British, at the time of independence, the Indian rupee was equal in value to the US dollar in 1947. Due to the continuous unchecked drain, the value of the Indian rupee has consistently gone down.
You may ask, if India was so prosperous and strong, how did the waves of plunder take place? The other secret to the sustained prosperity of India for over 1700 years had been its good administration and governance.
Despite having many kingdoms at the village level, the Panchayat was the local administration. India has been a democracy at the grassroots level. Elections have been held for Panchayats for over 1000 years with strict rules to keep out corrupt people. Kings came and went. Kingdoms changed shapes and sizes. Yet, the individual villages of India continued to flourish.
While we think we are progressing, our value in relation to other world economies has dropped 65 times in 65 years since independence.
India has to be stopped from going down the graph.
But for this, every Indian has to act.
U-turn India.